We spend far too much time worried about what makes us different than the next person or better than the next person, and not enough time thinking about why we should respect the next person. We all have a story, an overarching theme that runs through our lives and makes us who we are. The problem is, we think that since each of our stories is different, there's not a lot of perceived value and shared struggle. But we have far more in common than we can imagine, and what motivates one person can certainly help us as well. The Third Lap podcast is about understanding, respecting, and appreciating the struggle that it takes to overcome immeasurable odds in order to reach your destiny. Join me as I interview and bond with some of the most inspiring and incredible people, diving into their why to get a full understanding of their being. Without each other, we have nothing. So let's go on this adventure together and take on the future with open minds and open hearts. Welcome to the Third Lap podcast. Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in. This is episode 4 of the Third Lap podcast. As always, I'm excited, and I started off by saying how excited I am to connect with the person that I'm speaking to. Today's a little bit different for me because previously I connected with folks that either I had coached or had given advice to. This time it's really flipped around for me. I get a chance to talk with Gayle Saunders today, who really has been like a mentor and a leader for me over the past several years as, I work my way through just the media aspect of trying to cover the Eagles and producing better content. Gayle has just been an amazing resource for me and just a person that is a never-ending sort of source of wealth of information and has recognized so much talent through his brand and through the work that he's doing covering the Eagles. And so, Gayle, man, what's going on, my brother? How's everything?
I'm doing good. First and foremost, man, it's an honor, man. Like, sometimes you don't, I don't know. You've always been a good friend, and it's been very easy to like chop it up and talk and just find people that are on the same wavelength as you. So it's always great to have those conversations with people that inspire you. You talk about, bro, you've been an inspiration to me. Like, when I first found your work online, you inspired me. And I was like, you know what? Let me reach out to this dude. And that's kind of, segueing into how we first met.
Yeah. So, Gayle, I would love for you to give like a 30 to 60 second sort of elevator pitch. Who are you? Just to give people an idea or background of who you are. But I would love for you to define yourself.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I mean, I've always seen myself as multi-layered. I do a lot of things. I've worked in entertainment for about 20 years. I've been trying to do this media thing ever since I was 16 years old. Probably 15. I saw Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing actually changed my life. Spike Lee and his like vision and him being a brother that I looked up to, and really just like, you see someone else doing media and he was just that inspiration. I'm like, wow, maybe I could do this in some odd way or whatever. Come to find out, I ended up, long story short, I ended up meeting him on my first year at my job. I currently work at Nickelodeon and MTV and BET. So it's like, my journey is all over the place. I've done a lot of cool things. I've directed commercials, directed shorts. I've acted. I've been behind the camera. I've worked in reality television. I've got to see the behind the scenes. I've helped develop TV shows, and just been an amazing journey. But I've always tested myself creativity wise, trying to do different things. I can't just do one thing. I just like to do everything. I wrote for NBC Sports. I left NBC Sports to start my own thing called Fourth and Jawn with one of my partners, Eric Emanuel. And Fourth and Jawn was a thing where we wanted to create and bring a different light on the Philadelphia Eagles from a fun, energetic, bringing the people closer to the game. So that's how Fourth and Jawn started. So I've been just, at the end of the day, I've been a creative person, and whether it's painting sneakers, doing art shows, I'm into pretty much everything. It could be a gift and a curse, though.
Right. I mean, and you are, and you listed quite a few things that we're going to touch on today. Of course, Fourth and Jawn, of course, sort of the like origination of your career, the dope sneakers that you've been creating, and I love just seeing the time lapse process of you painting those. That's been incredible. And you know why I continue to look up to you is because you are a person that does so many things. So the last episode, I got a chance to connect with my boy Hattress, and we talked about that whole concept of being a jack of all trades but a master of none, and how like that whole philosophy has now switched because you have to be able to do so many different things, right? Like that's what a renaissance person is. It's a person that is able to do and touch on so many different things simultaneously and not get pigeonholed into one sort of opportunity or label. We'll talk now about how we met. So Gayle actually found me. I was creating like draft breakdown segments for the Philadelphia Eagles through Bleeding Green Nation. I was actually posting them through their like fan submission area, and have been doing it for about a year or so. And then one day I just get a random email like message from somebody that's like, hey, you know, I saw your work, I really like it. If you're interested in doing more, like let's talk. So I jumped on the opportunity. You know, I had been hoping to get picked up by Bleeding Green Nation at that point. That was sort of like the motivation. That was really the only place that I knew. Actually, it was before I even became aware of Fourth and Jawn. And so you know, we had that first initial conversation, and we bonded at that point. Like you were so real and you were so honest and straightforward about who you were, what the opportunity was, what you saw in me, and I appreciated that so much that I've continue with it. And that was about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, closer to four. And so talk to me about that because I'm not the only person that you've attracted to the Fourth and Jawn brand. So, you know, how do you go about that sort of introduction to people? Like, how are you able to like scour so many different places to find so many different types of writers and people to bring to your team?
I think part of just being everyday life is just being self-aware of your surroundings, being aware of things in your community, and obviously it's the Eagles community and social media, but just being, like to be authentic and be real with the audience that you're trying to, your brand is it's in the Eagles community. So you first you have to be part of the community, and I think secondly you have to be authentic because in this day
Yeah.
and age, you see people and not everyone's there at face value. There's ulterior motives, but at the end of the day, when someone can tell somebody's coming from a place of like realness and a place of like, just like some people, I'll talk to people like, oh man, I can't believe you're even messaging me, or like they have this belief persona that if you're doing something up here that you can't like just be a part of the community. I'm a fan of like so many other people's stuff. I'm a fan of like people who are put out great content and they're themselves and they're authentic and they're real. When I'm scouring the internet and kind of like embracing all the content, if I see something really great, I'll let people know, man. Like, yo, this is really good. Like where else can I read your stuff? Or like, and it's real because at the end of the day, like I listen to other podcasts, I read other people's articles and stuff. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to be a student. That's never ever changing. Being a student in the game, whatever you're doing, I think is the most important. Like once you stop not wanting to learn, I think that's where you start losing. I'm sure you understand being a minority in this game. There's different hoops that you might have to jump. Some people, you know, prejudge you on certain things, and you're like, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna work hard, do what I got to do to make it. So I saw your stuff, and I'm like, yo, man, this guy has what it takes. And I'm telling you, if you guys haven't seen any of Mal's writing, his breakdowns, his the way he writes, tells stories, very descriptive. He just got it. So that was the one thing about your work that stood out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, about the like hurdles, I think that has applied both professionally with just work, period, right? You know, learning to be my authentic self and learning to have people accept me for who and what I am. You know, I never, because I can't be disingenuous. I can't not be authentic. And so, you know, I've had to learn how to sort of cater that to the professional world, but nonetheless, like I am who I am. And it was great because the Fourth and Jawn brand is, like you said, like it's popping, like it's fun, like it is meant to be fun. And so when I came to the team and when I initially joined you, when I first met E-Rock, it became easy because I saw a bunch of people that were really just being themselves. Again, I always thank you for reaching out. I always thank you for just being that sort of bridge between where I was to where I was trying to go. And what you mentioned about like being a fan of other people's work, you've pointed me in the direction of so many other people, D Gunn especially, that have been doing this and continue to do this. And, Derek Gunn was somebody that you told me like I could be like if I wanted to go down that path. And so, I just appreciate you, man. And, I will always be appreciative and I continue to send strong writers. And you're actually just talked to a young brother today that mentioned on Twitter he was looking for an opportunity. And I DM'd him and was like, listen, if you're looking for a great place to continue to like hone your skills and get better, Fourth and Jawn, like reach out to Gayle, because I feel like you have a place and you've created an opportunity for really strong people to go and just get better. And like with your coaching and with your guidance, like really there is no limit. And so, again, I can thank you 1,000 times, but we have other stuff to get to. So we'll always talk about it. You know how I feel about you. You like a big brother to me, man. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
much love, man. It's always reciprocal. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so, Gail, where you from, bro? Like this is the section here where you get a chance to rep your hood. So where you from, man? What was it like growing up? Where you from?
I'm from New London, Connecticut. My father grew up in Philly. He got a job. Used to work at the shipyards in Philly, and there was an
Nice.
opportunity to work at General Dynamics in Groton, Connecticut. So my dad was helped build submarines for his whole career, and he would like test. They would go out, build the submarines, and test the submarines and whatever. So like he moved up to Connecticut, and then he ended up bumping into my mom, who my mom's from the Philippines. So they met over a dead body. It was her first day at the hospital, and she had to move a dead body into the morgue. And my dad at night had a job. He had his own cleaning service that he would clean buff floors. So he had like multiple jobs, and that's how they met. That's where I grew up, man. New London, Connecticut. That's where I'm from. It's like a small. It's like a little city type town. Yeah, that's where Jordan Reed went to high school. Went to New London High School. AJ Dillon is from New London, Connecticut.
And you was going hard for him during the draft season. So now I understand why it was AJ Dillon's season, man, for the draft, which is funny. Where else have you lived? You grew up in CT like that. You always speak very highly of Connecticut. Where else have you lived? What other places have you sort of like left your mark on?
After I graduated, I moved to Jersey City, New Jersey. My family moved from Connecticut after I went off to college. They moved back to Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware. So I've been in between like Wilmington, Delaware, and Jersey City. And one thing that I could talk about is having visions when things aren't going your way. To envision yourself in a place where you want to work. Envision yourself for the job that you want. Envision yourself around the people that potentially will inspire you. So like, I don't know if it's a sports thing. I had a football coach talk about, seeing what your dreams are, seeing them before they happen, like seeing the play that happens before it happens. So, creative visualization is a big part of everything that I do. And, I saw myself working at MTV Networks. My friends in high school, they'd ask me, where are you going to work? I'm like, oh, I'm going to be at MTV Networks. They're like, do you know anyone there? No. How are you going to get there? I don't know. I'm going to get there. In college, same thing. I'm like, yo, I'm going to get there. My brother gave me this creative visualization book for Christmas, and he says, read this. And then 9 months later, I'm at the job that I've always wanted to be at. I don't know how it happened. It was a girl that he had dated. And then she said, oh, we're hiring people. Since I know you, I can get you a job without interviewing. So that's how it happened. But New York City, I've been in between New York City and I work in Times Square, the hustle and bustle of the city. I felt like I always needed to get away from the city. So I lived on the outskirts of Jersey City, West New York, Weehawken, New Jersey. But yeah, New York City, it's a great city, but it'll eat people up and spit them out.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Without a question. And so the three episodes before you, two folks from Uptown between Bronx and Harlem. My mom's from Queens, and so we got a lot of the New York City experience. Shout outs to Jersey though. You know, we got our first Jersey head in the building, man. So shout outs to Jersey. There'll be other Jersey folks to come, but you know, a lot of love for Jersey. I spent roughly about half my life living in Jersey. Met my wife, met my best friend in Jersey.
There you go.
How you feel about Connecticut is how I feel about Jersey. It's kind of mixed. It's a mixed bag. It's some good things. There's some not so great things in there. But that's what happens when you stay somewhere too, you know, long enough. But yeah, man, and what you said about projecting yourself. So that's something my dad and mom also talked to me about. My dad, from a sports standpoint, would always say before you play a game, envision how the game's gonna go, especially with basketball, making free throws, making jump shots, grabbing rebounds, playing defense. Like see the whole game before you play it. And then my mom was really around just being positive because it took me so long to graduate from high school and kind of get started with college. It was always like project yourself where you want to go and stop getting lost in the everyday. And that's so important because we just don't know. But when you stay sort of locked into something and you really put your spiritual energy into it, it's funny how you attract yourself to those things. Also, like you said, to those people that will help you get there. You talking about that starting where you are and being there for 20 years. Talk us through like the beginning of your career, sort of like what got you to even realize that being in the entertainment field or industry was where you wanted to be. Talk to us about the beginning of your career, Gayle.
It was kind of like, you know, like I always had this creative side, and I knew like working on productions, like being a PA and like, you know, can I live on that kind of salary? You know, like straight out of college, I needed a 9 to 5, you know, and it was like the best of both worlds. You know, I was like, you know, I could produce content on the side. I could do, you know, do my little sketch comedy. I could do whatever it is, but I could still have a 9 to 5 and I'd still be in entertainment. I always wanted to have my own show. I pitched multiple projects to, you know, some of the biggest production companies in Hollywood. I work in business and legal affairs, and I've been in business and legal affairs for the last 20 years. So me learning the ins and outs of contracts, and, you know, I currently write contracts working with production companies for shoots and stuff. My boss, she's in charge of all, you know, animation for Nickelodeon. So I see, you know, all the creative deals and how productions are set up and how the creative is set up. I used to shoot pitch meetings. I've been in pitch meetings where I'm pitching a project to Cisco, and he's like, I need a show idea. And you're like, they don't want you to say anything about the thong song. So you have to, like, these are the weirdest situations that I've experienced as I've had, like, where you learn on the fly and you're able to adapt. But I've tried so many different things. I think if I'm going to give advice to, say, a younger person, is try as many things as you can and as early as possible. At first, I wanted to be a cameraman. So I got on a set and I'm filming and I'm like, you know what? Who's the guy in the chair over there? Like, I want to be that guy. I want to be the director or the producer who's, you know, pushing the content and creating the ideas. And I'm looking at contracts. I'm like, wow, these are the guys that really make the moves. So I started producing and I started directing my own shorts and stuff, pitching projects to film festivals, and, you know, gathering actors and just doing projects and say, hey, do you want to make content? Let's make content. So while doing all these other creative things, or whether I'm, you know, acting in like shorts and stuff, I still have the 9 to 5 job that keeps the bills paid and the lights on. So I've always had this dual type of career for a long time.
Like what were some of the places that you worked even while at MTV or at Viacom? Like, you know, as you continue to develop like that side hustle that's now become like a legitimate, you know, hustle for you. Like what were some of the places that helped you get a start, and like how did you end up there in the first place?
I worked with NFL Films on a project where one of my buddies was just like, look, I know you used to play football. I know you know a lot of football players. We need a scout coordinator to find football players for our documentary. It was like on the like physics of football. And so, you know, I'm out here like looking at my old teammates and calling people like, yeah, we need some football players. And then I'm on a set. I'm like, how did I get here? The biggest thing about relationships is like that you make in building a network, which is most important as well, not just for like work purposes, but for, having a network of people that you can trust as friends. They have your best intentions, and they want to look out for you. And if they know you, they're going to put you in a place to succeed. I think I met a lot of people who put me in situations where like I wouldn't have been there if I didn't have the network and friends that I had built throughout the years being in the entertainment industry. Like I've had so many friends that have done so many great things that they've inspired me to, do other things. I had a friend who pitched a reality show. Next thing you know, we're helping her develop the show. Next thing you know, we're on the set and I'm auditioning kids, and I have no experience in auditioning kids to be on a TV show, but here I am on a TV show actually being a talent and being a cameraman. So it's like these situations will arise, but at the end of the day, it's always good to have a vision, and keep yourself open to new ideas. We produced a commercial for MTV. Like my friend had reached out, like, look, I want to start producing commercials, and we linked up. And I was like, I have friends here that maybe we could make it happen. Next thing you know, we're shooting a commercial, and then we don't have any actors for the commercial. I become the actor for the commercial. So it's like I had animator friends at Nickelodeon, so I hit my friends at Nickelodeon, and it's like, yo, we got this project. You bring all your friends together and start creating. Next thing you know, I'm lying in front of the New York Giants ad group, their marketing group. I'm lying because I'm telling them I'm a diehard Eagles fan. I'm telling them I'm a Giants fan. And I'm pitching this project, and it's like the dream come true. And to see the trophies, and I'm like, you can do what you got to do to put yourself in situations. I'm just trying to help get this project. Too bad the Giants sucked it up and they didn't make the playoffs, and we never got the animation project.
You sound like you just continue to take advantage of opportunities as they presented themselves to you. And that's clutch. I would have done the exact same thing. I would tell the Washington football team, I love the Washington football team if it means that I get a chance to either connect myself or connect somebody within my network to an opportunity that they're seeking out. And on top of that, you also talked about having that network, and being an authentic person, I'm sure has worked out really well for you in regards to developing those relationships and developing those networking opportunities, because you have so many people. Like, Gayle is on Twitter especially, is Mr. 1,000 memes. Like, it's just funny to see all of the memes and the traffic it generates when I'm looking at like hundreds of likes and shares and like retweets, and I'm just like, wow, from a meme. But your memes are always on point, and the content that you create is always on point. And so, let's talk now about 4th and Jawn, because, there's been a heck of a journey for that brand. You talked about being in business and legal affairs at Viacom and MTV, and just how that helped shape your career. But what was it like starting 4th and Jawn, and looking at the market here in Philadelphia and realizing that like there is this void and there is this opportunity that's present? And why did you and Emmanuel decide to step into that space?
I was blogging myself. I had started my own website, and it was called Skinny Post with a high school friend, and we were out there grinding. And 6 years of that led into landing a job with NBC's Roto World, where I was the draft analyst. And I was doing that for 2 years, and it got to a point where it kind of got stale. Like I knew I had more in me. I knew that media was shifting. I knew that podcasts and video content and digital was on its way. And, I wasn't given the opportunity really to like grow the way I wanted to. And being a machine and just writing breaking news and stuff like that, at the end of it got a little bit monotonous for me. Wouldn't have got that opportunity if I didn't work and someone else saw my content. That's how NBC Sports had found me. Just grinding and having that opportunity was amazing, because that was also one of my dream jobs. Working for being a draft analyst, that was one of my dream jobs. So I left there to start something with Eric, to do something different and to do something that no one else was doing. And being like I'm a super fan, but that when they say super fans, that it really is. I've always been an Eagles fan, and I've always been passionate about it. And I think you can turn your passion into a project or a job or whatever, but it's not work to me. It's never been work to me. 4th and Jawn is predominantly been a volunteer business for all of us. I've always wanted it to be a place where it was inclusive. I've been in other situations where it's not inclusive, or I felt I was all out on the outside looking in. I've always wanted to be open with the people that I work with, or trying to create content, or trying to like give other people opportunities that I never had. Looking at people like, dude, you're great. Like, let's do good stuff together. Let's make content together. But also, like, building a community has been the most rewarding thing when it comes to 4th and Jawn. Meeting great Eagle fans, being able to like raise money for charity, give back to the community, touch people in other ways that, like you're an Eagle fan, but you could still give back. I think the big inspiration for me has always been the way my mother has been giving. She had passed away from cancer, and once she had passed away, I was like, how can I honor my mom? Because she was that kind of person who was giving and always a helping hand in the community, Sunday school teacher, just a mom to so many of my friends who didn't have family, but just reaching out. She was authentic, and that just having our brand, I've always wanted to be authentic, real, and just building a community is great, man. Like I'm telling you, like when you can just kick it with Eagle fans and just talk about it all day, and like I'm the kind of guy that if you keep talking to me about Eagles, I'll go all day. We could do this all day because that's who I am. 4th and Jawn has created opportunities for other people, which has been also rewarding. People have moved on and got jobs elsewhere. But that to me is more rewarding than anything. Because I mean, like people will say they want to help people, but not everyone wants to help people. Having those relationships with like the one we have, and other guys that we work with, it's great, man. I mean, I feel like people tend to forget that giving back and each one teach one is a thing, man. Like I'm learning from younger people, and I'm learning from older people, but I'm trying to like always be a student and grow, and actually grow with other people.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah. And what you said about just the mentoring and like helping people go to other places is so important, because like you could just recruit people recurringly and not help them grow and prosper in their career. But like you've given me specifically such sage advice, and I've talked to Jimmy, who will be on the show later, quite a few times about just the influence. And you're actually the reason I even connected with Jimmy in the first place, because you vouched so hard for him, Hollywood Hearn, and a lot of the other writers and folks through 4th and Jawn that I've connected with over the past few years. Like you're the reason that ultimately we ended up connecting, because not only did you bring me to the brand, but then through our conversations and like you said, talking about the birds, we talk about the Eagles for hours. We literally, what did we spend? How many hours was that we did for the draft, man? Like that was, and it's you yourself had to spend like a good 12 to 14 hours live, just exhausted, going through 7 rounds of football, and pre-draft.
24 hours of live draft coverage.
Yeah. Crazy. And, I felt to even be a part of that was an honor and a blessing. And, Prime and all of these other people that participated in that, the Reese's guy. And you brought in so many people, and so many folks had a chance to participate and even further themselves. I gained quite a few followers from after that, because people got a chance to see me separate from the articles, but talk live, and like my personality was able to come through. And I love the fact that you continue to be innovative in your approach. So, 4th and Jawn is a website, but talk to us a little bit about the podcast and some of the evolution that's come along with that podcast, because I feel like, the website is sort of like a standalone, but that podcast has really branded itself and been the place that people go to, especially during football season, to talk about the birds and to reflect on what's happening during the season. And, when we lose like we did week 1, to just commiserate in misery sometimes, especially when you lose into the Washington football team like that. So talk to us about just how that podcast started. Was that always the vision? And then about its evolution.
Well, me and E were on a podcast prior to that. And we were always saying, I was like, yo, man, we should do our own thing. Like I was like, we could do this as well. I mean, it's something that I had wanted to do. And then we came together, but part of it was having a good time doing it. Like I came from a place where you're analyzing football, and so I could analyze if I wanted to, like hardcore if I wanted to, but I could also talk, smack. As you get older, you got you can't be that crazy. You gotta tone it down. That whole comedic side I could crack jokes. It comes with the fact that my name's Gayle. When I was a kid, I used to get picked on a lot because the only thing they had was you're named after, you got a girl's name.
Right.
But when I'm telling them I'm named after Gayle Sayers, kids don't like who's Gayle Sayers? I'm like,
Right.
he's a Hall of Fame running back. So I mean, I've always had to be quick-witted. I think part of our podcast being fun, light, but also informative. Also having a place for people to gather online. A big part of a lot of things that we were doing was tailgating and taking care of some fans and just showing up. We're like, hey, you can have a free drink courtesy of Bud Light. Conchi Bakery was feeding our people for free, and we just wanted people to have a place to gather and give back. At the end of the day, it all reverts to giving back and being part of the community. And so I think we signed on with NBC Philly for 2 years. And we just left NBC Philly. Right now we're on our own for this upcoming season. I feel like this pandemic has hit. We've had to morph what we're doing, again, being up on technology and trying to be creative and do something new. We've been live streaming and staying socially distant and doing the best that we can to, we're usually used to shooting inside of a studio for our shows. Now we do it virtually, and continue to keep on pushing out content. Shout out to Hollywood Hearn. We're continuing to push out content. And, at the end of the day, Eagles football, it's being played. We're going to talk about it.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah. Definitely shout out to Hollywood Hearn. Shout outs to, Chris Malley, Brennan Soko, Jimmy Smith. It's a lot of the people, man.
Yeah, Ryan Neal.
Mark Drumheller, who, I love because he does the handicapping for sports betting. And I'm not that great, but I read his stuff because if I ever get into it, man, that's the person that I'm going to. And so, there are a lot of people that make this possible outside of just you and Hollywood Hearn. But definitely the two of you have really taken it to the next level. And I really enjoyed it. I remember, 2 years ago calling into the show and giving you gave me the nickname, Malcolm Flex. And so, it kind of started there, evolved, but, given you gave me, it's listen, Mal, I'm gonna give you you got 2 minutes to run down a bunch of stats. And, I got on, boom, 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 and we ran them through. But you always continue to give me that platform, bringing me in pre-draft to do those draft videos. And that was a whole lot of fun. But the diverse way that you all produce content is so important because the game is evolving and changing, and the way that you interact with fans has to continue to change and evolve. And you study this game, and you have shown that your time with MTV, but also your intellect and intelligence, independent of any, place where you may have a 9 to 5, it just continues to shine through. And so, we talked about how you started, we talked about 4th and Jawn and what really brought that to light in the podcast itself. But the Third Lap podcast wouldn't be what it is without talking about some of the difficulties or some of the adversity that you've had to face. And so talk to us a little bit about what has been challenging, as you build your own independent brand, as you fight here in Philadelphia for just visibility amongst so many different, blogs and publications. And even though you've been able to get that recognition, what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome, and how did you push through?
I think one of the biggest challenges is trying to get your voice out there without being, the word authentic has been, said a million times, but for people to really understand and get your voice, they have to gain your trust. So being part of the community is where people gain that trust. And if you speak their language, and this goes to any whatever you're trying to do, whatever content you're trying to produce, or whatever community you're trying to build. If you don't have people's trust, then how do you expect people to listen to you? If you don't speak the language of the community that you're trying to address or have conversations with, if you don't understand what drives them or what inspires them or what understand what they're passionate about, how can you expect to push content to people who can see right through someone who's not authentic? So, just that's the biggest, I think, getting my voice heard and being part of the community. That's the most rewarding thing, is having a platform where, I don't have to have a corporation over your head telling you what you have to say, or put out clickbait material. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's not like we're getting paid here or like pushing, it's not, it's a community that's like, sometimes I remember I was, when I was writing for Roto World, there was a point where my boss is like, you haven't put in for a paycheck in like 7 months, but you're continue to write every day.
Right.
He's like, what's going on over here? It's never been about money. It's been about like believing in something and like not tainting what, I mean, one of these days, hopefully it becomes a money-making business. Again, it's like to inspire other people out there to like push their content and get their podcast listened to, or like, don't stop, man. Like, I got a word of advice from John Barchard, who was with Bleeding Green Nation at first, and they did their podcast. He told me, he's like, dude, never stop recording. And I took that to heart, because, it's, you got to keep moving. You got to keep on creating. You have to keep challenging yourself. Even though if you're nervous, you have to get outside your comfort zone. Like, you can't sit and be comfortable being comfortable. Like, if you're trying to create and trying to inspire and trying to, like, you gotta create action.
What you said about don't stop recording, and shout outs to Bleeding Green Nation too. It's so true, and I learned a lot through the way that you've taken action at Fourth and Jawn and really applied that to this podcast. Like, I told you about the podcast, oh man, a year ago. And, we had like a whole 45-minute, hour-long conversation literally about my dream and aspiration and this podcast, and the amount of sage advice that you gave me was imperative to me getting to this point in the first place. You were one of the first people that I told about this, and you gave me a lot of really just sound advice. And I took it to heart, because I knew that you were somebody that A, had my best interests at heart, and B, had already been doing this. So it wasn't like you were talking about something you had no experience with. And so to get to this point, and when I'm shaping out the list of people that I want to speak to, your name is at the top, because I know that not only have you helped me get to where I am, and you'll continue to help me, I'm sure, through this path, but also you have so much advice and so much just intelligence and such a creative mind around creating content, that it was imperative for me to get your voice on wax outside of just your brand, but apply it to mine now. And so, I'm gonna piggyback some of the followers, because, I'm gonna eat off your brand a little bit too.
That's how it works,
Right.
Like, when people are like, how do you build? Like, this is how you build. Like, when someone else co-signs on you, your audience moves over to their audience, and you intertwine and you intermingle, and that's how the community grows, and that's how you get someone to support you. And, it's through relationships.
And so you touched a little bit on becoming profitable. So talk to me about where Fourth and Jawn is headed now. And you also mentioned that we don't get paid, which we don't, but we get a lot of incentive outside of just having my work published and having a steady place where I know I can have it published. I got to sit virtual courtside 2 games for watching the Sixers get beat to death by the Celtics. There have been other opportunities where we've gotten things that otherwise I wouldn't have access to if it wasn't for you and this brand. And so, as always, man, I'm just grateful. And anyone that is in it only for the money, you doing it wrong. You know, I rapped for free for years and gave away my mixtapes for free for years because I knew that until I built a solid foundation of people that trusted me as an artist, I wasn't going to ever become profitable anyway. And I've applied that to pretty much everything that I do, including this podcast, which may turn profit at some point, but this is for love and not for profit necessarily. But to be able to profit off something that you love, ultimately, I think is any artist's dream. And so as you're evolving the brand at Fourth and Jawn, and as you continue to look forward into the future, how do you plan to pivot this and continue to pivot this into something that could potentially start making money for you and the rest of the team?
Now it's kind of like you want to make sure that the voice remains pure in the community, and it's a constant evolution. This game is you see like some of your Derek Gunn, who's been a big inspiration to me. Him getting let go by NBC Philadelphia. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that whole coming back to like, when you have your own brand, you could never be fired. You know what I mean? I tell people, I'm like you're the brand. Like people that work with Fourth and Jawn, I'm like, yo, you are a brand. Like your work, your name, but what you're building. Like obviously we're all working together. Like we're trying to Wu-Tang this thing together, and I'm trying to be the Black Ray Didinger in in Philadelphia, or just myself. The way I'm just saying, like his story as a fan writing about the Eagles, and how he's evolved into this historian. I would love to be in my 70s sitting where he's sitting talking about the Eagles, and you're getting paid. Having the opportunity last year to finally meet him, and I'm sitting in a green room and I'm like talking about pregame stuff with one of my like sports idols, like in terms of Eagles content creators. Like I'm here with Ray Didinger, like, and I've talked about like foreseeing things, and I'm here next to a guy who's inspired me, and I'm sitting on the same couch. And not to say that we're the same person. This is where it, like you pinch yourself. You're like, man, I cannot believe that I'm here. Moving forward, having a brand that people trust, and pushing like really great content, and inspiring, and also giving back to the community has always been a thing that I'm always going to make sure it's a part of Fourth and Jawn. Clickbait stuff, you look at, a lot of sites. I've been where they tell you, we want you to do this kind of content so you can create numbers. Like it's never going to be something that we do. But I want to expand, like, especially in this day and age where tech is evolving and we can be in tons of places. Our last live stream, our Eagles kickoff live pregame show, we had people from Qatar. Was it Qatar or Qatar? Yeah. Qatar, yeah. Germany, London, Australia, like fans from all over the globe just connecting. I feel like in this day and age, the community is so huge, and you can be literally in someone's house via their cell phone. And I just think evolving with technology, but also still being part of the people, boots on the ground. Like a lot of other outlets don't want to be mingling with the fans. Or we're fans at the end of the day. It's fan centric content that we put out there, but we also analyze the game like we were analysts as well. So I spend probably 60 hours a week just researching. So it's being informative, and speaking the language of the fan will always be something that Fourth and Jawn will do.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah, that's dope. And like you said, you get people that are afraid to interact with the people. And two folks that I want to shout out here that aren't a part of the Fourth and Jawn brand, but Mike K, who is another one of those people that he's at NJ.com, but he interacts with folks all the time. And like he and I had a conversation because I kind of said something that he misunderstood, and then we had a whole conversation through the DMs, and we've continued to communicate. And so I always appreciate people that, like you said, our boots on the ground. And then Fran Duffy, who was at Temple, and you and I talk a lot about Fran Duffy because like his story is so dope and the content that he creates is just incredible. Like I'm watching his video breakdowns and I'm just like, wow, that's what I aspire to get to at some point. And so to see so many people that Derek Gunn, like you mentioned, who's just been idolized by so many people here in Philadelphia, and then to see him get, to lose his job, but then turns around and less than a month later has already recreated a whole brand and like now has something going for himself.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
A
That's
hundred
that.
percent, 100%.
You know.
Trey Thomas, who used to play tackle for the Eagles and now is breaking down film, especially offensive linemen. And so this, I can only speak for being a Philadelphia Eagles fan because I'm only a Philadelphia fan. I appreciate other teams, but when it comes to like fandom, I rep where I'm from, and our community is like so gung ho and like committed that I feel like what you're saying right now is imperative. That like you have to be in the field, you have to be on the ground with them for it to resonate because the minute that they feel like you've separated yourself, you've lost, especially with Fourth and Jawn, because like I quickly realized like, yo, it's popping over here. Like I tell you that all the time, like, yo, we popping. And I love what you say about the Wu-Tang. I'm hoping to be like the Tikal or the Raekwon of the Wu-Tang group here at Fourth and Jawn because, it's true. It's so many different personalities, so many different people that have come together to create this and to work together, and but separately are really strong independently in and of themselves. And you got to be a RZA like yourself to be able to corral all these different people under one brand, but also give them the leeway to be themselves and be independent. Even through the pandemic, this has not faltered. You made a really strong pivot towards technology and realized how important it was to create diverse amounts of content for people to consume all around the world. And they're now reaping the benefits, which is dope. And so, you talked about how you started humble beginnings, what got you to where you are, eventually where you like this to go. What keeps you pushing? Like, what's your motivation? Like, what's your why behind all of this?
I think my why has always been to like, again, just being a student and learning and evolving. I think being creative has always been an outlet of mine since I was a kid. Like in your 40s, like now I'm customizing sneakers. Like I've been wanting to do that my whole entire life, but not knowing how to do it. But due to being, I was like looking for Eagles sneakers to match. I was like, yo, like if you can't make it, I'm gonna make it myself. And that idea of like no one's making it, you make it yourself. I mean, like you can use that avenue for anything. Like always looking for ways around things to actually do it for yourself, man. Like and learning, like sitting here learning about breaking down paint and like I'm like, what am I doing right now? But it's so fun and creative that it's another outlet like for me to just dip into. But it's always just the ability to learn new things has always pushed me. Giving back, whether it's blessing someone with a pair of kicks and being like, seeing somebody like, yeah, they're wearing your art or whatever, or just like helping somebody with a new experience. I gave two fans playoff tickets to the Seahawks game, and they had no idea that they were going to a game. Man, watching their face light up, knowing that they're going to their first Eagles game ever, but it's the playoffs. Unfortunately, it was a terrible watching Carson Wentz go down, but it's just like I was blessed with tickets that day. It's always about blessing the next person. You know what I mean? Like creating other opportunities for other people is always that inspires me, like to do better, like so I can give back. I mean, giving back is always what really at the end of the day kind of inspires me, but also just like community. Like some people may frown upon social media and making friends online and like whatever it is the case that they don't get it or understand it. Some people do get it, and some people have these. I would have never met you if it wasn't for Twitter. You know what I mean? It's there's always ways to meet people. I've talked to many people during this pandemic who feel alone or feel like they're not a part of something or they don't understand how to like find their tribe or find that community. You can do that online, and you can these relationships don't have to end online. A couple has gotten married that has went to a couple of our tailgates. They're regulars at our tailgate. They met at our tailgate. And they got married this year. So it's
That's amazing.
like you never know um, what kind of things will come out of your hard work, and just these little things like that's what makes my day. Like like these little relationships you build and the stories, and I think the stories that you continue to create. Like when people talk about opportunities, you create opportunities by your action, and people forget that. It's a domino effect. Once you create things, it creates other avenues for other things to happen. So, if it's one thing I could tell people, keep creating and keep on creating opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, like you said, it's a ripple effect, domino effect, and even in relationship building, that's amazing. Congratulations to that couple that met at the tailgates and continue to evolve that relationship. An ongoing theme really through the first three episodes now into the fourth one of the Third Lap podcast is around social media and how we found ways to interact with people that we don't even know, and like strangers support us in ways that even people that we know and love don't, because that's what the brand is, and like that's sort of what you're creating. And so talk a little also about the sneakers, because that really evolved over time, and it's been dope seeing you tap into that market, and even generating revenue off it, right? Like, you're not kicking people sneakers for free all the time. And so, talk about like what that's been like, and it really seems to apply back to what you were saying about always constantly learning and growing.
And it's to the point where like I got to figure out if I'm going to turn this into something.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just challenging yourself. It's weird to be like, oh, it's sneakers, but it is kind of art. It's an art form, but it's like, just it's just fun way. Like back in the day when you used to color, you're just like, yo, coloring the lines. It's fun. Um, I always wanted my own sneaker when I was a kid. I used to draw sneakers all the time. So I looked into building my own shoe models back in the day when I was probably like 15 years ago. I was like, maybe I'll just create my own shoe line. I met a couple of people who had their own shoe lines back in the day, and got to like talk to like sneaker heads that are in the industry who inspired me. Again, like I could use the shoe as like it's almost like I see a shoe, but I'm gonna make it my own. I see Philadelphia sports. I'm gonna make it my own. Like it's about adapting it to your own style, but like making it your own at the end of the day. So like I could see something like, you know what? I'm not gonna spend $500 on that. I'm actually gonna make my own and flip it in my own way and style. So
We're getting to the tail end of this. If people listen to this episode and only catch one thing, or like what's one motivational thing that you want to tell folks that have tuned in today?
I think to tap into your passion. I think it's important to be passionate about something. It doesn't cost money. Finding something that you're excited about, something that drives you, I think that's one of the most important things people can do. Never stop trying things. Don't give up on certain things. I don't care what you're passionate about. It could be something, but if that's what makes you get up in the morning and be so excited to talk about, read about, whether it's if you're working on cars, if you're knitting, if you're cooking, everybody has their own talent or passion or creative side or whatever it is. If you're great at numbers, you're an accountant. If you're someone who could fix somebody's credit, if you could, if you're a real estate person, you are your own expert. You can teach somebody something. So I feel like, being a student of the game, teaching your craft to people, building your community, giving back. I'm into everything. So when people are like, what do you do? I was like, I do everything.
That's dope, brother. And so, what are you reading, or what have you read? You gave me a great book suggestion, and we talked about it a little bit before we came on. But what are some of the books that you've read or come across or have had suggested to you that have really helped you take it to the next level?
I think Turning Pro, a book by Stephen Pressfield. He also I also recommend that book, Do the Work. But turning pro, it's like a coming to age, when you look yourself in the eye and kind of realize that you're a pro. Like, what do pros do? Like, whatever you're trying to do, you do it professionally. I mean, because professionals know what's amateur. They know the difference between an amateur and a professional. So it's not just the action that what you're doing, but it's also a mindset. So I feel like people have to get over the fact that I just started this. I'm an amateur. I don't know. But learning your craft is learning your craft. It's it's a part of becoming who you are. And just kind of you tap into, turning pro. It says tapping into your inner power and creating your life's work. That book cover alone, I looked at it, I was like, man, this is how do I get to the next level? And it's a book that I recommend to a lot of friends that I meet, just because it meant so much to me and helped me grow as a person. And if you check Stephen Pressfield out, he's got a lot of books out there. He has the War of Art as well. But I just think that the whole mindset, doing the work, turning pro, for anyone who's out there trying to create a brand, create content, once you begin to look at yourself as a professional, it shifts. Everything shifts. Because people tend to like to shoot themselves in the foot and look at themselves as not a professional. I just do this. I think having that mindset is essential to grow.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for suggesting turning pro and do the work. It changed my whole perspective on everything. And like I said, before we got on, it hit me between the eyes, right? Like it addressed that amateurish mentality and gave you very logical and legitimate steps on how to turn pro. And really turning pro is taking yourself serious, right? Like, you said doing the work is literally doing the work. And we spend a lot of time not trying to do the work and having these shadow careers and doing these things that don't really reward us in a meaningful way. And some people spend their entire lives doing it. And I love what you said about naming all of those different walks of life, right? Like you don't have to be an artist. Your art can be real estate. Your art can be math and numbers. Your art can be, writing nonfiction, as a journalist, maybe. There are so many places where people can apply the knowledge that you've provided today and also do the work to get to where they're trying to go. And within the book, it was very straightforward about the fact that a lot of times we don't do the work because we're afraid of making it and being successful. And it's so funny how many people are afraid of success. And like I can share in that. As a rapper, I was petrified of becoming successful because then all of a sudden there's these expectations attached to you and your work. And that's where I feel like so many people fall short. And so those two books that you mentioned, that author in general, are incredible, really life changing for me. And so, Gayle, we're now at the tail end. I really appreciate you again coming on the show. Where can people find you on social media? As always, I say it'll be posted with the actual podcast episode when it launches. But where can people find you on social media if they want to continue to follow you on Fourth and Jawn?
You can find us on all the socials at Fourth. That's 4th and Jawn on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can find me at Eagle Sessions on Twitter. I spend a lot of my time on Twitter trying to catch the breaking news. On IG, I'm at Gayle, Gayle, and another E, Saunders. So it's not actually Gayle Saunders. It's Gayle E Saunders. But that's pretty much. And if you want to check out all our content, shout out to the Fourth and Jawn writers, and you as well, Mal, at fourthandjawn.com. A lot of Eagles content is provided there by all of us. And what else? I think that's pretty much it.
Gayle is a dope person to follow, especially on Twitter, but catch him on IG too. Like you said, shout outs to the whole Fourth and Jawn gang, all of the writers, all the staff members, all the people that make it possible for us to have this platform. I personally appreciate every last one of you. Gayle, I really appreciate you. This was such a great opportunity for me to kind of flip this around because you usually are giving me the platform to speak. And so it's been a great pleasure for me to give you a platform to talk about just your experiences and who you are and what you believe in and what has helped you get to this point. You've shared so many of these jewels with me throughout the past several years. And so I'm so happy that I now get to record it and release it to people that I know and like, you know, younger people behind me that I'm telling like, listen, Gayle is that dude. Like now they'll understand why I'm always saying that you're that dude, man. So, you know, as always, I appreciate you. You know, each one teach one. We all learn together. This has been an incredible episode. I can't wait for us to continue to work together in the future. Any last words before we sign out?
At the end of the day, man, I feel like it's, during these times, just checking with your peoples, man. A lot of people are going through things that they will not tell you about. Sometimes you have to ask and be proactive, but checking in on your family, and realizing that each day is not promised. You just living each day to the fullest, whether that is letting your loved ones know that they're loved, just stopping and smelling the roses, just doing things like if you wake up today and you feel like you need to do something, just do it, and just stay inspired, man, and keep it moving.
Yeah, check in with your people, man. Your mental health is a real thing, especially in a pandemic. It
It is.
intensifies that even more. You and I have talked extensively through this pandemic, just to kind of keep each other sane, especially when you was out there by yourself, bro. I don't know how you did that. I had my wife, you know, I saw my pops every week, so that was helpful. I don't know how people have been doing this by themselves, but checking on your people, like Sharif said in episode 1, every day is a Wednesday. Every day is a day to win. You know, win today and keep winning days, and you'll be amazed at how it all changes itself together and really changes your life. So, Gayle, again, thank you so much, my brother. This is episode 4 of the Third Lap podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Third Lap podcast. This is your host, Mal Davis. Please visit thethirdlappodcast.com for more information about the podcast, about our guests, and also to see our reading list. You can find us at The Third Lap Podcast on LinkedIn and Facebook, at Third Lap on Twitter, and at third_lap_podcast on Instagram. If you know anyone that would be great to be featured on this show, please reach out to our host, Mal Davis. He's always looking for interesting people to learn more about them and to talk about their pathway. Thank you so much again. Have a good one.